Okay, we're going to show you three methods to check the injection timing. Now in all three of them we're going to assume that you've got it roughly accurate. If you've had the injection pump out, there's a whole procedure for aligning it up and getting the injection pump approximately where it's supposed to go. But once you get it in there, you've got to do a fine adjustment. So the coarse adjustment is just getting it at the right tooth on the whole gear system that turns it. But once you get the tooth right on the sprocket, well, then you need to make some adjustment. And so the first method we're going to use the switch that Mercedes puts out, and it won't work on every 300D turbo. I think the model started in 82 or 83, but they make a little light, and it's a little electrical system, and this adjustment is made with the car not running, of course. And you see this little position indicator that Mercedes makes. It costs about $300. But it just has two wires. One of them goes to the battery. The one is obvious. It has a red clamp on it. The other one screws into there's a little connection. It screws into the side of the injection pump. There's a little plug, and I'll point to it. It's a little 8mm. It takes an 8mm hex to get it out of there. It's down on the side of the injection pump right there. So we see that there's the injection pump, and toward the back of it, of course it's on the driver's side of the car, right there, there's a little plug like this. And so we pull the plug off and we put this connector, it just screws right in there. So once it's screwed in there, then what we do is we hook it up to the battery and we turn the crank, and what we want is both the A and the B light to come on. Now what there is there's a little connector, a little electrical connector, a contact point that's getting rotated around as the injection pump rotates with the crankshaft. So we're going to take our standard long 27mm socket and we're going to rotate the crankshaft, and we're going to watch this position indicator at the same time, and we want A and B to light up together at exactly 15 degrees. And so I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to have Gordon tell me when A and B, so it helps if you have someone to help you on this, because I don't know, I might be able to get it under there. I'll try to get it under there where I could see it. But Gordon is going to have to film it anyway, so I'll just let him tell me. I want both the A and the B light to be lit up, and when they are lit up, I want it to be on exactly 15 degrees after top dead center. Now that's not when number one fires, but that's just where the position indicator is set up. In other words, that it's completely arbitrary actually where they put the pin on there, I'm sure, and so they just say at 15 degrees plus or minus 1 degree is when we want both the A and the B light. So I'm going to get underneath and start turning the crank, and as you watch you'll see A light up or B light up but not together, and then when we get them together that's exactly where we want the 15 degrees to be. So what we would do is we'd get them both lit up, and if it wasn't at 15 degrees we would loosen the injection pump and twist it one way or another until we got them both A and B lit up at exactly 15 degrees. So let me turn the crank and let's see what happens. That's 15 degrees now after top dead center. Now let me make one more comment. Notice I took this vacuum hose off of here. They're real easy to break. It's the vacuum line that goes from the vacuum pump to the brake booster, this line right here. And this thing is really expensive and we're working all around it. So I always take that thing off. It's worth it. It costs a lot of money, and if you break these little nipples off there, you'll have to replace it. And one of these is a metered airflow for the transmission shift vacuum, and so you do have to replace it. You can't just make one of these for yourself and have it be right, and so take it off. You'll be glad you did. It's just a 19mm, and then it takes a 19 and a 17mm over here. Let's take it off and put it aside. Now another comment, you want to make sure that you rotate the engine in the correct direction. And that means that as you look at the front of the engine, we want to rotate it clockwise. So as we are looking at it from the front, we want to rotate it in this direction clockwise. If you ever forget that, look at the fan. You can tell how the fan has to suck air. It can only turn in that direction. Okay, now I've got my socket down there, so it will turn all the way right now. So I'm going to turn it, and Gordon is going to watch it and tell me when it lights up, when it gets close.
Okay, B's on.
Okay, so B lights up first.
Okay, they both were on for a second. Now A's on.
Okay. It's all right to back it up maybe 1 degree or something. I need to get it exactly where A and B are both lit up, and it's very sensitive.
Now.
There.
Okay, you went past it. Now, it was on for just a second and it went off again.
Well, I'll try a couple more times to get it right, but it's going to be hard to get it exactly perfect. Let's see.
There, both on.
They're there?
Both on.
All right. Now, we got them both on. So let's look at the position indicator and see where it says it is. There's the line that we're looking at right there. See that little bar? And we see that that's 10 degrees right there, that line. And we see that it's 20 degrees right up here. And 15 is halfway in between, and it's exactly on 15 degrees. Can we see that on the camera? Yeah. And it's 15 degrees after top dead center because of the rotation of the engine. The rotation of the engine, of course, is clockwise as we look at it from the front. So it's gone past that pin, which is that little stud right there is very close to top dead center. Not exactly on it. I think it's about 5 degrees off of that. But
So point out the 10 again, will you? There's 10.
10 is
there, and
there.
20's there.
And 20 is there.
And so right in between is
Right
15.
in between, there's a mark right there, right on 15.
Right.
See it?
Yes.
So it's perfect.
Okay.
All right. So that's how we do it with an A/B switch. Now, you may not want to invest in an A/B switch. You may or may not have one or know someone that has one, but in any case, it's kind of expensive to buy one of those, but sometimes it's worth it if you want to get. Now, we saw that this one was set up perfectly and everything was correct. The A/B light was on at 15 degrees. But if they wouldn't come on when this was 15 degrees, let's say you set it up, you turned it to where these two came on and it wasn't 15 degrees, it was 20 degrees after top dead center, so it's off by 5 degrees. What do? Well, what you do is you set this at 15, so you turn the crank until it's exactly 15 degrees. And now the A/B lights are not on. And then of course you come over here and you loosen the injection pump and you actually twist it on its axis. And twisting it towards the engine, I think it richens the, it makes the delivery be faster, and to back it up means it's slower. So, and you can play with it and see what it does, but there are 4 bolts that it takes to loosen this, and it's going to take a little patience, but one of them is right there. Okay, so that's one bolt. I think they're all 13 millimeters. There's one. Let's go look at the second one. It's kind of opposite to that. It's right there. There's 2. There's a third one. You have to get underneath the car, but it's in that same plane as these other 2. It's down there underneath. We'll go under there and show you in a minute. And there's a 4th one, and I promise it's a challenge for you. It's back here. If you look at the very back at the injection pump, I don't even know if we can see it with a camera, but I'll point to where it is approximately. It's down in there. It's a 13 millimeter. There's a bracket that holds it. It's way down on the bottom, approximately where my pointer is, right down there. And there's a bracket that's bolted to the engine that holds the injection pump in the back. It is a very difficult bolt to get to, but we'll show you a couple of wrenches and some patience you can do it. You have to loosen those 4 bolts, and once you do, you can move that injection pump, rotate it a few degrees, and that's what adjusts the injection timing if it's not correct. Now let's go and look at a second method of adjusting and checking the injection timing. And then, and with this second method, we're going to use what it's called a luminescent probe. And so first let me take this apart and we'll set up our luminescent probe and I'll show you what it's all about. So we'll stop here for a minute and get set up. Now the second method we're going to use to show about checking the injection timing is to use an instrument, and this is actually a dynamic measurement. What we're going to use is a Snap-on, it's called a Lumi inductive adapter. What it does is it measures when that number 1 cylinder flashes, so it looks at the point of combustion, or exactly when it flashes, and therefore it's called luminescent. And what you do is you put this little adapter into the glow plug hole on the number 1 cylinder, and it fits in there, and it senses whenever the number 1 cylinder fires. And of course, once we screw the glow plug out and put this in, then we just put this little piece on there, and so this little instrument is going to detect it. And actually what we need is a normal, ordinary inductive timing light that we would use for a gasoline engine. And of course one of those goes to the positive and one to the negative. And then normally you would hook that little clip-on inductive sensor around the number 1 spark plug, and what you would get is a strobe when the number 1 fired. Well, the Lumi probe is going to detect the number 1 firing, and we're going to put this little thing around that little coil that's provided on the Snap-on instrument. It's an MT254. So all we're going to do is clip that around there, and we're going to see, and it's going to have the same effect as checking the timing on a gasoline engine with a spark plug. So we're going to see exactly when number 1 fires. So we'll show you how to do that. Now, number 1, remember now, it doesn't fire at 15 degrees after top dead center. That's just where the previous indicator was set up. In other words, that's just where the little marker was on that AB indicator. But number 1 fires awfully close to top dead center, and we'll show you exactly where. Okay, I'm going to have to talk real loud over this engine running, but we've got this Lumi probe in the number 1 cylinder, and then we've got a normal timing light hooked around it, and you can see we got the strobe turned on, and so we get a flash out of the strobe light. We've just got the strobe light hooked up to the battery for power. Now if we look down here about where it's firing, you'll see it's right on 0. See, it's firing just on 0. So we're detecting the firing point right at top dead center. So that pin is at 5 degrees before top dead center, and so what we're seeing is 0 for the firing point when the injection timing is perfect. Now you got to be careful. You got to have the engine RPM set about right, because if the engine RPM is wrong, watch what happens. So you see, it is affected by the firing point slightly, or the RPM of the engine. Anyway, firing at 0 when it's idling. So that's our second method. Now we'll look at a third method, and this one is one that the normal do-it-yourselfer probably can do a lot easier. Now the third method we're going to show you is probably the one that most do-it-yourselfers will do or will use, because it doesn't require real special equipment. All you really need is a little drip tube. And this one is just one of the injector lines cut off, and so it will serve as our drip tube. We're going to hook it up to the number 1 line on the injection pump. So we're going to take that line off and hook this up, but we got to take some things out of that number 1 line so that we can get some fuel flow. So let's show you how to do that. We're going to first take off the line to the number 1, and if you recall, that's a 17 millimeter. So we need to disconnect that line and move it out of the way. So take that fuel line off, and we'll need an 8 right there. Get an 8 millimeter. I want this fuel line off. Once I get that fuel line off, I'm going to take the top of that injector out of there, and that's 15, I guess. I think. Okay, so we have to take the top of this number 1 injection pump line apart, and be careful because there are a couple little parts in there, and we're going to take them out of there. There's a spring, and down in there we need a little pair of needle nose. We're going to take that spring out, and we'll show you there's a little nozzle in there. And we're going to pull it out of there. We don't want anything in there to restrict our fuel flow. So remember, it goes in like that with that part down, and the spring goes right on top of that. So it goes in like this, okay, and that meters the flow, but we're going to leave that part, the spring and that, we're going to leave this part out. So we're just going to set it off to the side. So now we're going to put this piece without that spring and little metering device in there. Okay, put it back on, and then, oops, tighten it up. Then we're going to put our little drip tube on. Drip tube, I always make it kind of face the side, the fender, or the front, so I can, doesn't really matter where it faces, just as long as it's not in your way and you can see what's going on. Maybe I'll have it face there. I need to tighten that up. All right. Now the method is to have it drip according to the book, to set the pump in such a way that it drips at 1 drop per second with the crank in a particular position. Well, perhaps I should have put the crank in the position, and when you do it, you should do this too, because I'm just dripping fuel unnecessarily here. We'll put the crank at 24 degrees before top dead center. This particular adjustment, 24 degrees before top dead center, is where we need to set the crank angle before we actually do this measurement. So like I say, we should have done that first. I'd forgotten that I needed to do that first. So I'll do that. Before we do any of this procedure with drip method, we set the crank at 24 degrees before top dead center. Now this one is different. 24 degrees before top dead center, that's this process. So I'll adjust it, and Gordon will watch it here for me.
It's on 80, 75, now it's down to 55, down to 40. Okay, slow down, slow down. It's down at 37, 30, 20, right there. You went past it just a little bit.
But I gotta also make sure that it's on the compression stroke.
Is it compression stroke?
I don't know. I forgot all about that. I forgot how complicated it was. Okay. Let's back it up.
Oh, now it went too far.
Okay.
You're on about 28 right now. Just a hair. Right there. Perfect. Perfect.
Okay. Let me. I want to get the. Now we just showed you how to get that crank angle to 24 degrees before top dead center, but that could be 24 degrees before top dead center on the exhaust or the compression, and what we need is the compression stroke. In other words, that could be one of two 24 degrees before top dead center settings, and we need the compression stroke 24 degrees before top dead center, not the exhaust. So the way we tell without taking the valve cover off and looking at the valves, and we could always do that. We could take the valve cover off and see if the intake valve just opened and closed and then come up on 24, and we know that's top dead center when the intake valve is the one that's moving. But there's another way without taking the intake valve off, and that is to go ahead and put this little drip line on here, and we'll show you if we're on the wrong 24 degrees before top dead center, that is we're on the exhaust stroke, fuel will be running out of that line. So we want to be at the place on the side near 24 degrees before top dead center, and the point is if it's off a little bit, it might stop at something plus or minus a few degrees around 24, but it won't even come close to stopping anywhere around 24 degrees, stopping by the fuel stopping, flowing, if it's on the exhaust stroke. So let me prove that to you. Gordon's going to film while I turn the crank 360 degrees to get it on top dead center, about 24 degrees before top dead center on the exhaust stroke, and watch what happens to the fuel. I'm going to turn it around one time.
Starting to drip already.
And how far am I off? What's the crank?
Have to look. I can't. You're off the.
Okay, so it's way off.
Coming around. Here it comes on the reading again. You're okay right there. Stop. It's dripping, and you're right at about 0 top dead center.
Okay, but watch what happens. See, the fuel just squirts out of there if you actuate your little hand pump. It just runs out of there. Okay? So we really got diesel coming everywhere when we're working our little hand pump. But now if we go back around to the compression stroke, or the way we know we're on the compression stroke is see where the fuel stops.
It's dripping still. You're coming up. It's dripping. You're coming up right now. Right there. Stopped.
Okay.
You're right at. You're about 10 degrees top dead center before.
Oh, I went by, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I need to. I'll back it up that far.
No, you're at about 19.
19?
Yes.
Okay. Is it dripping at 19?
No.
Now where is it?
It's at almost 30. You're about 28.
Okay.
And it's not dripping.
Okay.
Little, just a hair more. There.
Okay. Okay. Now I'm on 24. And of course I can't get any fuel out of it. Now the book says to adjust it with 24 degrees on the compression stroke in such a way that you get 1 drop per second out of this drip tube. And I usually just set it at 0. 1 drop per second and 0 is essentially the same thing. But let's loosen it up and just show you what it feels like and what it looks like. Okay, remember, we got to loosen 4 13mm bolts. And I'm going to do the easy one first, the easy 2. Say it's easy. They're in a nasty spot and there's fuel lines around there and you don't want to break them, and you just have to be kind of careful. That one got broken loose. Okay, now we've got all 4 bolts loose on the injection pump, and you can see that we've taken the rack off. Frequently I have to take it off because while the injection pump will theoretically move with the rack on there, it's really stubborn. But I want to show you that it will twist. You see, it'll twist a few degrees, and that's just how fine the adjustment is. But it will twist a few degrees now that the rack is off. It'll barely twist with the rack on, but it's just a lot easier. So what we're going to do is we're going to get to where when we pump it, we get fuel flowing out of that number 1 line, and if we get it, look it's just squirting out of there right now. And what we want to do is twist the injection pump to where that slows down according to the book to 1 drop per second. My problem is that in most diesel mechanics that I know, just turn it till it stops. Now you see it's still flowing a little bit right there, it stopped. Okay, so if you can count 1 drop per second, that's fine, but while actuating the little pump, what you should get is either 1 drop per second or none. Now I've got a little bit of a flow, now way too much. You can see how sensitive it is. So it's right, essentially, when you get 1 drop per second or none. So we'll call that good. Now we'll tighten up the injection pump, put the rack back on, clear the lines, crank her up.